You call yourself a reviewer now? A professional critic? You think you deserve all those subs now? And your reputation? You have a lot of explaining to do.
It's not fun being aggressive over everything, being triggered by my whole experience of livid judgment that dictates me and preventing my own free will to be who I'm supposed to be or what I choose to be. These are the many factors that flood in my head 24/7. Emotions are a beauty that solidifies expressions without words, but ultimately it can come at a heavy price, such as this. And to this day, it's still taking its toll. Before I was in the fandom, I used to review movies. Before I reviewed movies, I made Flash content on a site called Newgrounds. Sprite flashes, specifically. For over a decade, I've been a content creator, and for a while I've been very passionate over the years, and have been very happy to have had such a hobby and escape from my experiences of being an easy target for harassment in school. However, I've made mistakes. Some more obvious, as I've shown myself in the past, making myself a total jackass. But there are some mistakes that I never like talking about. While I've made some stupid commitments, like my Rainbow Rocks rant, at least that was based on trying to make a moral stand. But the reasons I've made mistakes of in the past were selfish, self-entitled, and heavily delusional. Since it's been brought up now, there's no hiding anymore. I don't expect any sympathy, and I won't hold back. Back when I first started in 2005, I was a prime definition of cringe. Remember when TK addressed his experiences of trying to fit in with the big kids in his Newbie Dash review? Yeah, I was like that online. The content I've seen from them are what I heavily admired. I wanted to be as good as them at the time, and I wanted to be appreciated. But everyone saw I was trying too hard, and I was being something I wasn't. Being a somebody. Of course, I neglected this argument, and what didn't help was that back then when I made my first submission on Newgrounds, I received very positive feedback, and for a while I was happy with it at the time, especially provided how harsh the reviewers were on Newgrounds. Seriously, if you think the YouTube comments were immature, well, reviewers on Newgrounds threw death threats. So with that, I took the feedback of my first Flash submitted online to pride. And ever since then, I avoided criticism and assumed that I could easily fit in with many other content creators at the time. I looked down on those who were new and wasn't well received. At one point, however, I received a constructive critique on a Flash movie that was an entry for a silly contest regarding Yoshi's Island. It was well laid out, and, well, unfortunately, I didn't respond as well to some of these criticisms I received. They involved programs that I didn't have knowledge or access of. Easily, I could have asked for suggestions from this user since he was also a Flash animator himself, and he had more knowledge, but my arrogance got the best of me. Consequently, I received a comment from another content creator who was more skilled and who I looked up to, and, well, he bit my head off based on how I responded to the other user. Not only on that one Flash, but all three of the Flash movies I had at the time. He viewed all three of them and implied that I sucked. Seeing him lash at me in such a manner like that, it really hurt. Afterwards, I was on the edge of just giving up or just quitting. But a friend I knew in high school who introduced me to Newgrounds told me to not let that get to me and just proceed on. I did what I could to apologize to those who I was disrespectful to, but there wasn't much of a response. I proceeded on making Flash content, and it was then I was given a bigger reality check. More criticism was becoming more apparent, and instead of blind praise, I had to stomach that in. I tried to, but I responded lividly when I shouldn't. I tried taking in criticism at the time, but another thing was overtaking me. I eagerly wanted one of my works featured on the front page. Everyone else I knew got to be on front page, but no matter what, anything I made wasn't good enough. I tried making it, telling myself I wanted to do this for fun. And a part of it was making something based on games I enjoyed from my childhood. But I exploded when, in late 2007, a low-quality Sprite movie was featured. I posted an angry entry on a site called Cheesy Art, similar to DeviantArt, ranted about how it had more attention than whatever effort I made. And there I showed my true colors. I lost respect from the close ones I remembered, and others just tried to convince me to proceed on since they still liked my work nonetheless. As it turns out, the Flash was just a joke over how cringing and effortless Sprite flashes were, as a majority of them were like that at the time. Similar to the jokes of Jared Jackson when they were not meant to be taken seriously. After some time passed by, I proceeded with Sonic the Unstoppable in 2008. I got a daily second, which was the highest rank I got, but it didn't mean that much anymore. Afterwards, things with sprites just died out. I was more into college, art, and discussions about movies. This leads me to when I started reviewing movies. Some of you would already know, as I started in 2009. Part of the motivation was obviously by Doug Walker and Roger Ebert. The other, I spoke up about movies when I was in college, and all the time people agreed with me. And once again, I took it to pride and I became delusional. I was one of those who believed Hollywood wasn't making as good movies as they used to, and I wanted hand-drawn animation back. A nostalgia tard is what some people would call it nowadays. The genre was a huge role in my childhood, as it was not only my favorite genre of animation, it was my favorite genre in all of filming, period. It's what got me into movies since I was a baby. Sure enough, everyone else had this feeling too. And by no surprise, when finding out about The Princess and the Frog since 2007, I was ecstatic. The trailer itself even made it a big deal when it was, well, released in 2009. In the mid-2000s, about 90% of animated movies consisted of modern pop culture jokes and didn't take the genre serious. There were some exceptions, obviously, but it just felt like companies were just pandering kids. When I grew up with films like Aladdin and the Lion King, they took the storytelling and the characters first and not the gags and jokes. Comparatively, the mid-2000s felt like a dark age. That's why I was mad that after The Princess and the Frog wasn't met to the success as a lot of us expected, hand-drawn animation was just left back in the shadows. I treated this movie like it was the second coming of Christ, and that it would bring back the old days. And when it wasn't met, I became massively upset and depressed, only because I didn't get what I wanted. All the time, I only relied on my childhood, and I wanted that brought back. It was selfish. I overlooked the movies that actually got the praise it did deserve, and ignoring them came to massively discrediting the efforts. 2011 and 12 for me was the worst, as movie reviews were of a concern. Films I didn't like were heavily praised, and I just couldn't understand anymore. What didn't help that year was an experience with a movie my family and I sat through. The movie that was regarding a certain milkshake.
Drink your milkshake. I drink it up.
Don't bully me, Daniel!
Paul Thomas Anderson's There Will Be Blood. The movie was released in 2007, but it wasn't until 2011 that I would actually watch it. It received a lot of praise by critics and moviegoers alike, but as a result, I hated the movie passionately. Remember how I felt about Super Speedy, or even what I said about Newbie Dash and TK's podcast? This movie made me so angry that I never wanted to even talk about it. I'd rather watch those 2 episodes than watch this movie. And believe it or not, there's a lot of movies that I would rather watch Super Speedy or Newbie Dash over. But I digress. Part of which behind There Will Be Blood is because I did talk about it once and it resulted into a massive backdraft. I made an angry review of the movie, venting out how movies like this got more attention at the Oscars than something both viewers and critics can come at the middle of. This explains the rant that I posted on DeviantArt in 2012. Regardless, I made an ass out of myself of this video, and to where, after a year it was uploaded, I placed it on private. However, the damage was already done. I said what I said, and I couldn't avoid it. It was hush-hush over the years, but it still haunts me. Do I still hate the movie? Fuck yeah, I still do. But There's something else that I didn't talk about, and it was much more personal. I saw the movie the night before I started my review. My dad showed some interest when I added it to the Rent list on Netflix. Mom, on the other hand, had no interest in film critics. Contrastly, you know my side. I loved film critics, but to rent a movie that was praised by them came to a risk for me. Dad and I prepared the movie as Mom was dragged in. And by no surprise, when I sat through There Will Be Blood, we were all either struggling to stay awake or just feel too uncomfortable for one scene after another. At one point, Daniel Plainview was pulled on stage at a church and was forced to shout out that he abandoned his kid. Dad got up and left at that point. He couldn't watch it anymore. On the other hand, Mom and I were the only ones left. At the last 10 minutes, I was willing to sit through it after Mom asked me. Neither of us did enjoy the film, but I was hoping that something would turn up. Oh boy, it did. That milkshake scene. I felt so uncomfortable witnessing my mom sit through this. It was so horrid. Obviously, that was the point, but that scene made me regret ever making the decision to rent the film in the first place. Ironically, that was the most iconic scene that critics praised the movie for. I was asked the next day about the movie if I was going to watch it again. No hesitation, the only thing I responded back was just take the movie back to the mailbox before I break it. I never wanted to set eyes on that movie again, since it wasted my parents' time out of their existence. I felt embarrassed. I felt like I didn't leave a good impression of them regarding my passion in movies and critics, as they were an influential role in my channel. I wanted them to be proud of what I liked, and well, I went in blind with no thought of any consequence. That's when I vented and made that stupid video. People loved the film, and I could never understand why. What I didn't consider was that the movie was known to be dark. I just rented the film by the praises and heard about it. I didn't read the summary or anything, just the name. And that's because I wanted to avoid spoilers and be surprised. Yeah, I was surprised, alright. Through the rest of 2011, I was feeling more alienated by the praised films, and I just grew more and more bitter on cinema. No matter how much I tried to be level-headed about it, I was just done. Discovering friendship is magic and being welcomed as a Brony that very year put me into a lighter mood. I had something to be happy about. Throughout the times of being away from my computer, I would think about the show and imagine so many possibilities. It gave me something to escape from reality, and I wasn't the only one. So much fan-made content was made out of obsession. It wasn't just the fact that I was admired for breaking the norm of liking something girlyish. It was a very therapeutic experience. Even throughout 2012, which was an even tougher year for me on a personal level, the fandom always gave me something to be happy about. Of course, though, you already know how I acted in Season 4, and, well, that's because when I was new to the fandom, I was even asked through a private message on what ideas I could give to the team behind the show. Assuming that they would respond, I developed ideas on how the series could be presented in an exciting way to the audience. Dash on the Wonderbolts, how badass it would be to see Chrysalis return, all resulted in comics. Yeah, I was so salty about that. Of course, by this point, they're not considered canon or so, but it took me so long to get that answer, and so long that the remnants of being told that they're in the comics still remains. Either or, I once again was taken in pride and being delusional. It didn't help that after a Canterlot wedding, I made more and more assumptions that the show could take more risks. From that, I showed my worst in Season 4. I got so wrapped up on my expectations from the beginning of the show, which I tried to stay away from, and, well, it still happened. Not only was my reviewing in Season 4 terrible, I wasn't enjoying it myself. Ranting and rambling and trying to stay up to date left me stressed out. The rumors of Amy getting death threats was added an insult to injury. Various arguments on Skype. That wasn't what I remembered. It wasn't therapeutic anymore. It was stressful. On top of that, sticking through all of this left a huge mark of my name on what I'm recognized for most of in the analysis community. But, am I still proud to be a Brony? Yes. Out of all the experiences of being an online content creator, this was the longest I've had and the most enjoyable. After Season 4, there was still something for me to be happy about within the fandom. I know it won't last forever, but I at least want to make the best of it. Nevertheless, it still doesn't hide the fact that what I wanted is what I focused on. A repeating cycle. A start of what's exciting and therapeutic and ending it on a bitter and sad note. Like a new life that leads to a painful death. The wanting of getting front page, bringing back my nostalgia of 2D animation, the direction of the show from Season 4. Remember when I said that I have a tendency to learn things the hard way? I wasn't fucking kidding. I focused on what I wanted, and that's not how life works. It's not what a professional critic should do. But what I wanted, I felt, is what I thought was needed. Wanting something and needing something are not the same thing, granted, but I always mixed myself up. I don't know what is needed, even when I think I do. I just say whenever I feel is a must, and the results begin to blur. This is why whenever I asked what to expect for the next season, I held my tongue, knowing that it won't live up to it. The only thing I want now is just be happy with whatever it is that I like to do. Whatever it is that entertains my audience along with. There's no doubt that I'll run into this again. I'll stumble, I'll fall, I'll land square in my face. But I'm not hiding anymore. With the gain I have, I should be more open to everything. It's all a matter of trial and error, but the feedback I gain now should bring me back down if I ever get too carried away. Even if I dug my own grave, I'm still going to continue to do what I do. Thank you all for your time through this long and detailed explanation. Stay tuned for Mending Fences.